are now going to get started with our next panel. And we are very privileged and delighted to introduce our next panel is again our very own Supervisor Katrina Foley, who represents the 5th District. And you know, we're in this great city of Costa Mesa, and she is the former mayor of Costa Mesa. But I always like to tell this story. When I first met Supervisor Foley on the steps of the Capitol, she was always on the go, and she never has stopped. And she always talked about, you got to go for it, June. You always got to work, and you always got to go for it, no matter what they say. And she has been a living, thriving example of that, and we are so privileged to have you here today, Supervisor Katrina Foley.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katrina Foley, County Supervisor, representing our fabulous 5th District. The 5th District does cover Costa Mesa right here where I live, all the way to San Clemente, which I was in attendance at a roundtable about the coastal rail resiliency this morning. So the 5th District has a whole variety of issues that all center around water in one way or another. And I like to say, you never know what's going to happen. A hurricane, coastal erosion, oil spill, toxic algae impacting sea lions and giving them seizures, landslides, extreme weather, flooding, you just don't know. So we have to be prepared. And that's what I think this whole summit is about, preparing for the future, especially as it relates to water. So we are now going to introduce the next panel up, which is Navigating New Waters, Advocating for Water Resiliency in an Evolving Political Landscape. This is going to be an interesting panel. Some people on the panel have been working on water for many, many years. Kathy Green, I know, right? As supervisor, I understand the importance of water resiliency for our communities, especially in South County. Since I took over the position, I've been learning a lot about the South County needs. Nearly 90% of South County water comes from imported water supply. That's just not sustainable. If the water supply were cut off due to a natural disaster, which, did you hear all those natural disasters I ticked off earlier? South County would only have 10 to 20 days of potable water available. So we really do need to prioritize water and infrastructure related to water, and how do we prepare and secure that water right here in Orange County. With climate events escalating, extreme weather events, we have to ensure that our communities have reliable access to water, even under a worst case scenario. So how do we do that? Water reclamation, rain capture, and direct potable reuse projects. And those require innovation, creativity, collaboration, and strategic investments of our community's hard-earned tax dollars. I think that's a theme I heard in the last panel as well. Earlier this year, I joined the Molten Niguel Water District in announcing a $10.3 million FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Award for the district. Congressman Levin was a big part of making sure that happened. This funding allows the district to mitigate the risk of infrastructure failure of our more than 40-year-old pipelines. I'm a little over 40, and I know all about how you gotta, upgrade, maintain. So making sure that our pipelines are modernized so that we can be prepared for a severe storm is critical to Southern California, and it should be part of what is our new normal. The County of Orange is also committed to continuing to work with our local, state, federal partners and our special districts to bring home investments. We are trying to put ourselves in a position to be able to be competitive for what are unprecedented amounts of funding that can come in to Orange County for infrastructure. We've just drafted our first climate action plan for Orange County, and it's right now as we speak. It's gone through all the department heads, and it's getting finalized this week. We will begin to take it out on the road, as they say, to the community with community meetings. We hope all of you will chime in and weigh in on what's needed. It has, 6 key priorities. Well, 5 really: energy, mobility and infrastructure, resource and recovery, waste, environmental justice, natural resources, and resilience. Now, as it relates to natural resources, that's where this water summit comes in. One of our key strategies is to have a goal of improving water quality, increasing water supply, reliability and efficiency, and integrating flood management and protection to be able to enhance our natural resources. So the county is taking a giant leap forward in creating a climate action plan. It's the first time we've ever had one. And it's good business too, because this will set us up for being competitive for significant grants. So the objective of today's panel focuses on a lot of these issues that we're going to be dealing with in our climate action plan: actionable strategies to address the complexities of and ensuring a reliable water supply amidst challenges like climate change, population needs, evolving regulations, and I'll add funding. Today, our panelists will share insights on the unique challenges, opportunities, and innovative solutions implemented by their agencies, the importance of political will in making difficult decisions, balancing of environmental concerns with our community needs, strategies for securing funding and effectively positioning our projects, and valuable takeaways for a more sustainable water future. Now, I'd like you to join me in welcoming our moderator, Maria Mehranian, Managing Partner at Cordoba Corp., and our panelists. Maria, are you here? Oh, there you are. Okay. And our panelists will be Castulo Estrada, Board Vice President for the Coachella Valley Water District; Kathy Green, Orange County's own, President of the Orange County Water District and Association of California Water Agencies. Hi, Kathy. Jasmine Hall, Vice President of the Inland Empire Utilities Agency. And Karina Quintanilla, Mayor of the City of Palm Desert. And finally, Mel Katz, Chair for the San Diego County Water Authority. And Mel, I just want to put in my plug for helping. Where's Mel? Is he here? There's Mel. Oh, there he is. Okay. I want to put in my plug. We need your help for our coastal rail and our sand replenishment. So we need to get those permits expedited. All right. Well, thank you all for joining the panel today and for the work that you're doing for a more sustainable future that makes sure that we have access to water here locally. And thank you for moderating. Thank you all. Appreciate being included.
So the first panel talked a lot about the water and whiskey and drinking and fighting, but my favorite one is different. President Kennedy says, the people who are going to solve the issue of water require 2 Nobel Prizes, one for science and one for politics. And today we had both the politicians and the people who are going to deal with the science of water. So we see who wins the Nobel Prize. Well, bringing together this panel was very, very important. It is very carefully chosen, selected individuals that are going to come from different watersheds with different issues, different infrastructures, different problems. And this gives an opportunity for us to come to share not only our resources and knowledge and experiences, but also the joint political will to get something done. And the good news is that you all heard how much organized coordination is going on right now. We have the county plan that Mark Pestrello talked about. We have coordination of policies, an attempt to connect water infrastructure to each other. And we started sharing knowledge and technology, and more than ever, linkage of water and energy. So is our job done? Of course not. It is work in progress for sure. But we all know also the challenges. We know the shortage of sustainable water infrastructure, aging water infrastructure. We know global warming. We know all that stuff. And on top of it, now we have budget constraints. But we are learning how to navigate this new world and how to come up with new solutions. And that's why, and I think we're all on the right track. That's why we're all here, I think, today. So it is only with this collaboration, which we talked about, and this collective political action and political will that we can get something done and go where we need to be. With that, I would like to go to Kathy Green. And this landmark legal move that you brought by your leadership, so many of California water districts came together and against the polluter and the victories that you have. And as a person that spent a long time in water quality, we all watched and we were so fascinated by what happened. I want to hear about what is that stand out from that experience, and where do you see we're going from how you created this new platform, this new threshold, this new day in water quality? And although the fight still continues, but a lot has been done, and I would want to hear from you of how you shared that with us.
As far as our successes go, certainly our groundwater replenishment is something everybody knows about. And we did that with not a lot of funding. There wasn't any funding. As everybody was talking about, the toilet to tap was something nobody wanted to touch. Now we're facing all the PFAS litigation. And again, we stepped forward. We decided we would take it on. We have a world-class laboratory that can test to those parts per trillion. And the price tag is going to be $1.8 billion. Wow. Good gracious, it just boggles my mind. There really isn't that much funding, but we have, as you said, sued the polluters, the people actually responsible, and they've moved into settlement. So really the payments will be pennies on a dollar. And but I'll take what we can get. Our federal and state monies have not come quickly. And unfortunately, when you're innovative like us, you step forward, but the money's not there. And that is troublesome. We have for 3 years in a row raised our rates over 10%. That is not easy. That is not easy to do. But our producers, the people who pump out, said, no, this is important. We want it, even if our water is not directly affected. We want to, and we have done all of that.
That's great.
So
that's great. Any thoughts you have on private sector playing a role, or the polluters themselves? I mean, we have examples of Santa Susana, Boeing, the contamination that they had, and how they kind of started to go beyond what they needed to do, although the process still is a long way, but I know you know that too. Yes.
Okay, as a former mayor of Huntington Beach, where Boeing was, yes, they did step forward, though. I will say that. We've also had other contamination, and reached out and said, we need you to clean up the contamination. It is not fair that the innocent ratepayers have to do this. And essentially they said, sue us. So we did.
Thank you.
But that's not really the way that is a good way of solving these problems.
Sure.
As you said, if we could all get together and say, even they could say, we didn't know, whether they knew or not. I don't care, but step forward and say, we will help clean up. We will do this on our own. We could have started solving this problem years ago.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I,
Melcats, I'm going to go to you because
can I interrupt
was-
one,
Oh,
one
sure.
quick second? I had received a text that on live stream they can't hear very well. So if we can be sure to keep the mic up. So just to, yeah, as
She was?
moving
Okay.
around. So just
Okay.
to, we want to be sure that what we're sharing gets
Sure.
across. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure. Melcats, I always admired your work in trying to create local sources. I know that desal and wastewater recycling has been on your agenda, and I wanted to hear about the consensus building process on desal, since I know that it was not controversial at all.
Yes. So we have a great desal plant in Carlsbad, California, that gives us 50,000 acre feet of water. Probably one of the largest in California, and probably one of the largest that will ever get built in California in the future. And we have plenty of water that comes from it, but you're right, it wasn't without controversy and a lot of meetings and a lot of cooperation of all different stakeholders to get something like that done. And we heard about it at the last panel, that if you really want to do something, it takes getting together, meeting with the right people, and trying to get something like that done. And it was a perfect example of a public-private partnership also.
Of course, yeah. Would you just elaborate a little bit on that side of public-private partnership? Because I think we don't have enough examples of that in our state. And it's something that is the future, and we have to move and promote towards that. Yeah.
No, it's really important, and it's, you know, when you look at our desal plant, it was a great deal. It was a great deal for our region and guaranteeing us water and diversifying the amounts of water that we get. But we couldn't do it if we didn't have Poseidon at the time, who would guarantee the running of it and the risk-taking of it. So we came in with money, they came in with money, but then they guarantee the running of it and some of the risk-taking.
It's really a great model. Just it is not easy to bring the private sector on, to be a partner and to stay on. And I admire for the work that you've done for bringing them on. Yep.
And we're working on another one for a large dam that we have for San Vicente for pumped hydro storage. And we're doing it the same way. We've raised the limits that the water can be, but then to get pumped hydro storage in there, we're going to need partners. And we've brought on a private sector company to be our partner in it.
Well, that's great. That's great. Thank you. Castulo, I just wanted you to talk about the disadvantaged community infrastructure force that brought together securing water and sewer in thousands of residents of Coachella Valley, and share that experience. That is kind of one of the themes of today about the whole idea of collective will and political will and collective action.
Sure, thank you. I want to thank everybody for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here. But it's a long story. I'll try to be brief. The Coachella Valley Water District was formed over 100 years ago, back in 1918. And during that time, the valley was primarily agriculture. There was nothing else other than agriculture, and half of the valley was agriculture, half of the valley was desert. And over the years, the side of the valley that was primarily desert, wasn't being farmed, started to incorporate into cities over the last, call it 80 years or so. And while the one side of the valley developed, the side that's agriculture kind of stayed the same, kind of looks the same today. And so as a result, you have a lot of the communities that established themselves in this part of the valley. There's no traditional housing there because there isn't infrastructure. There's a lack of water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure. And so the communities that developed there were in the form of trailer parks. They call it Polanco parks. And so these communities had to rely on their own septic tanks. They had to rely on their own private wells to provide that service. The wells that they're drilling are pulling water from the area of the aquifer that has naturally occurring arsenic, it has naturally occurring chromium, and so it's become a big problem. And so Over the last 10 years or so, we've been trying to figure out how to expand our infrastructure, trying to help the state kind of meet their policy that they call the human right to water. And so we've partnered up with them. We've partnered up with other folks like the county. At the beginning, it was kind of challenging. Nobody really wanted to take on the problem. It's not a new problem. It's something that's existed for decades. But no one's really wanted to tackle it. I think when I got on at the district, I've been at the district for 10 years now. I ran for office when I was 26. And I ran for office with that kind of as being my primary goal, was trying to bring more attention to the East Valley. And so when I first got into the district, I was thrown the book at me. I was new. I was thrown Prop 218. Yeah, that sounds like a nice goal, but fact is we can't use ratepayer money to expand infrastructure for new customers. I think the district was looking at it a lot like those were almost like developers if they wanted to extend the water lines and the sewer lines. And so we became aware that there was grant funding available through the SAFER program. We became familiar with that program. We created a task force to kind of tell that story. We became engaged in the bills at the state level with Senator Monty, with some of the other legislators that started to create funding for these types of projects. And we've been able to secure about $100 million. We created master plans for both water and sewer. We identified about 42 projects on the water side to consolidate over 100 small water systems. We identified about 30 projects to consolidate those same systems with sewer. And so that's taken a lot of work. I think we've made a lot of progress. And I think it was all possible because of the collaboration that we've been able to put together.
Thank you. What is next for you in that sense?
What's next?
What is next to continue those efforts?
Well, I think what's next is identifying more funding. So when we penciled out the cost of what it would take to implement all of the projects identified in the water master plan, all of the projects in the sewer master plan, back in 2018, those were 2018 dollars, we calculated that that would take about 200 million. And so I think the fact that we have a plan in place, it's very easy to use that as a roadmap. And so you continue to, you take out a few projects, you go to the next project. And so I think part of what the last panel said is, one of the things that you have to be able to do, whether it's in water or transportation or whatever it is, it's important for you to put a plan together. And then when you have a plan together, I think you're able to say or point to a project and say, hey, look, if you give me the money, I'm going to do these projects, and this is the benefit that it's going to create. And the more those projects are aligned with state goals or other goals, then I think it becomes easier for local government, state government, federal government to say, well, those are the types of projects that we want to fund. And so I think that's what we've been able to do, and we're going to continue to push for that.
I think that the lessons learned here that I'm hearing from everyone is that having a blueprint of action and knowing what their priorities are. And Jasmine, you and I talked earlier about not only storing water, but then the quality of water that we store and the whole issue of septic tanks in certain communities and how they impact the groundwater and the water that we store, how good that can be. But do you want to talk a little bit about that and the concerns you have?
I've been on IEUA board for the past 10 years, and I heard one speaker mention that I'm not on the board as a fighter, I'm on the board as a worker. And meeting with the constituents in my community, some of the housing areas that are using septic systems, there's a need for us to consider septic conversions. And it's a cost that could be shared with the homeowners, as well as funding from the cities, the county, as well as the state. And I think that if we're looking at storing water in the Chino Basin, which is one of our big projects that we received Prop 1 funding for, and we are looking at having it with our regional partners and having offset some of the imported water that we are purchasing from Met, a low-hanging fruit, but not a sexy project, would be septic conversions. And I think that when you look at the funding and how the funds are competitive, have competitive interests or conflicting interests, priorities. My board has priorities, my city has a priority, and my county. And so looking at all these priorities, we need to come together, mention like the master plan, the sewer master plan. I had viewed one of my city council meetings this last Tuesday, and they had money, a project for $3.7 million for stormwater capture. They took 1.5 million of the septic conversion funding to use for stormwater. We need both. And somehow, with the climate change, the issues that we're having, we can make some changes that would improve the water quality. With the nitrates, we have several different issues with, we call it disadvantaged communities, we call it low income, but we also have homes. I had a home on an acre of land in Vista. We had a septic system and we were far from the city. But looking at having a septic system outside in the county area, the thought may not be there where a developer would come in and want to develop that land in an urban city area. We have a large growth of warehouses and logistics centers within the city of Fontana. There was a lot of old homes in those areas. They're all on septic system. So we're looking at the quality of water, resiliency, sustainability. I think we need to put some emphasis and some actions and some funding behind making these changes for these residents.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to go to the mayor and ask a question on access and equity. And of course, access and equity deals with infrastructure, deals with water supply, water quality, and all of them. And I will let you shed some light on this.
Thank you. I think it's what everyone has been saying overlaps. Just because you have the access to water doesn't mean it's access to safe and clean drinking water. When the Colorado River allotments came through, tribal communities were excluded. So there is no equity. They may have the access, but how much later was their infrastructure built? Can these tribal communities afford their own infrastructure? And when disasters happen or there's access to wells, but the water isn't clean, people just say, oh, well, they can buy bottled water. But now we're looking at the double cost, the cost of the water itself and the environmental cost. We are enabling the polluters to cause further damage when we're not taking responsibility for the infrastructure. One department does the infrastructure. On the side of the city councils and elected officials, we have to make decisions. And for me, the way I approach it is cause and effect. One partnership that we had with the water district was for turf rebates. Get rid of some grass and we'll help you out with your bill. We want native landscape. The American dream was the white picket fence with grass in the front yard for your 2.5 kids and your little dog. We have to shift what that is. The American dream should be we can afford water. We can afford safe, clean drinking water. That needs to be the American dream. When we did the turf rebate, we were able to get $172,000. Maybe did I miss some commas in there? We were able to get 297 residential homes and 63 commercial homes or commercial businesses, and that was the equivalent of 883,000 square feet of turf that were removed and saved 51,681,000 gallons of water because we put in some natural landscape. We also make sure that with our developers, we say, here is the native plant palette. It is still beautiful, and we will work with you to let you know which ones bloom year-round, which ones bloom in different seasons, so it won't look drab and still attractive to people that are coming to you. Another consideration of cause and effect is, do you want to put in artificial turf? Well, artificial turf in a place that gets a lot of days that are above 120 degrees isn't going to put up as well as it does in lovely counties where you don't have that heat. Then we're looking again, it's not biodegradable. It is not safe in parks where you're getting people that are playing because it doesn't have the right cushion to prevent concussions. Everything is cause and effect, and as leaders, we have to make the decisions that are benefiting our residents, not just right now, not our ratepayers right now, not our partners right now, but 50 years from now, where our kids, grandkids, and those that come after us, they are the ones that are going to pay the price. Our rate increases right now are monetary, but their health and their safety are the true cost.
Thank you. Mel, I want to go back to you. There is this notion that the water funding is harder to come by compared to transportation. I do think that it requires some more research, because I think that I watched when the big water bond came down for $11 billion. For longest time, some of the dollars were not used, either because the qualification criteria was different, or it was difficult for certain smaller cities and entities to apply for this. Do you agree that funding for water is harder than funding for, let's say, transportation?
I don't know if it's harder than other items like transportation. I think the big deal is that there's money out there for new projects and not for maintaining the infrastructure that we currently have, which is a real problem. And you've heard about other people talk about it. You know, in San Diego right now, we have something called Moosa Canyon that we need $97 million to keep deferred maintenance done on this on these pipelines. If we don't get that money, we have to go to the ratepayers for that money. If we don't do those repairs, we could have a major flooding catastrophe under a major highway, which is Highway 15. Yet you don't have that kind of interest when you talk to the people in Washington or Sacramento. They would much rather talk about new projects that you're going after.
That's very true. I think most of the projects that I know, specifically in LA County, they lack from the Prop O. There's no O&M money, and all these facilities are having problems right now. Were you going to add something, Kathy, on that? No,
I'm agreeing.
yeah. Yeah. So, but again, I would like to do a little bit more research on this to see, are we doing the right kind of applications? Are we really able to maximize the dollars that are there for the water projects? And I agree with you that we always have a new project that we want to fund. So what about the existing infrastructure that we have? Kathy, I wanted to go back to you on being such a trailblazer in so many ways, that also the toilet to tap, and how you guys the campaign was so different and so successful versus what was tried in other places. Thinking about that, are you, first, if you want to talk about the O&M, and do you see a model that you can share on the kind of campaign that you did at the time? And are there new phases of that you would want to suggest to other districts?
Well, three things. One, it took us over 10 years to get to where we were. Remember, San Diego and LA said, never mind. They didn't like, and we decided this was so important to us. This was so important for water supply that we had to keep going. But we also realized that if we were going to keep going, we were going to have to collaborate with the many partners that we had on that. We had to go to environmentalists. We had to go to our public health people, to our medical people, to our constituents. And, in the beginning, it was not an easy sell. But as people started seeing, and we talked about it and we showed them, and everybody decided this does make sense for us. And why should we send all that water out to the ocean rather than use it ourselves? And I kept saying, don't you realize that from the beginning of time, we have only had a finite amount of water. So you've been recycling all this time, whether you knew it or not. But we'll make it really, really safe. Really, really a good, reliable source of water. So by the time we went for permitting, there was not one person who spoke against the project. Not one. I mean, boy, that's a long way. But remember, when we did this, there wasn't the funding sources. There were some, Met gave us some people, but very little. But in spite of that, we decided it was so important that we share all of our information. People from all over the world come to OCWD. We show them how to get GWRS up and running. And we will continue to do this. I mean, we're all true believers. And in fact, I usually tell the story. Singapore came and they were interested. They went back and they got online before we did. Took all of our information, everything, and got online. But they had, their president was such a solid believer. And he said, yes, we can get through. So we need to look at our permitting. We need to look at our funding. We need to look at the will to go forward on this. Right now, by the way, we are the largest GWRS system in the world. We produce 130 million gallons of high quality water every day, day after day. So, I mean, but that's something that we will share with anyone and everyone. So I think that collaboration is very important. But so is funding. As Supervisor Foley said, there has to be a way to encourage these projects where you can go forward. And it can't always be on the ratepayers.
Sure. We have 5 minutes left, and I have one question that I'm interested to ask. Costello, maybe you want to start with that. The infrastructure challenges in disadvantaged communities. Sometimes people think it's the same. They're all the same. They're not. Some similarities and some differences. Do you want to highlight that? What kind of infrastructure challenges are you experiencing in order to advance your policies that to continue?
Yeah, so I think this ties into the question that you asked about whether there's enough funding on the water side. And I agree that a lot of the funding is for new projects. And I also think that there's a greater need than the amount of funding that currently exists. There's a program out there called the SAFER program, and there's money in there, hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's a list that the state has put together called the human right to water list. And these are systems that are already failing right now. They're in violation. And then there's a list that they call at-risk systems. And these are systems that look like they're going to fail pretty soon. And there's not enough money to take care of those systems. And at the same time, the state of California is enacting new regulations that only makes the need even bigger without identifying new funding sources. And so, as an example, I'll use what we're doing out in the Coachella Valley, which is, as I mentioned, we've made a big effort to try to make a dent on the human right to water policy. We've put master plans together. We've put together $100 million. And we are going to be the largest region in the state of California that's going to be impacted by this chromium-6 regulation. We really don't have a PFAS issue in the Coachella Valley, but we have a huge chromium-6 issue. And there's no money identified for that. We have 100 wells. There's 5 water agencies in the Coachella Valley. Most of them are going to be impacted by this MCL. Coachella Valley Water District is by far the largest. We have 100 wells. 34 of those wells are going to be over the MCL. And we're calculating that it's going to cost about $500 million for us to implement those projects. So on one side, we just received $100 million from the state to consolidate systems that were failing by telling them, come and connect to us because the water is safe and affordable. And here pretty soon, because of the regulation, we're going to find ourselves out of compliance. And the only way to be in compliance is to implement a $500 million project that's going to raise the rates.
Right.
And so these are kind of the things that a lot of times are, it's policy that goes backwards. sometimes.
Conflicting.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
conflicting.
Sure.
And so that's one of the
Thank
issues
you.
that we have.
Thank you. One question, Mary, Measure W has an element of educational for communities, water educational funds. Is that something that you think is good and is useful for communities? And if it is, if there are examples in your community of that?
Absolutely. I think that education across the board. We have to be sure that everybody making a decision, everyone casting a vote, our kiddos need to know they are the change makers as well. When we are able to see the decisions that are being made by our elected leaders, who you're voting for, where your values align, is a big part of it as well. One thing, I sit on the League of Cities Environmental Quality Policy Committee, and I know it's not the same part of the question, but I have advocated that we are already paying as a state for the UC system and the Cal State system. If we want to talk about partnerships, use internships, hire them. The UC systems, they issue the doctorates, they're research-based. Cal States are practitioner-based. They can still research. That's how you can leverage the partnerships to gain access to some of those grants that are difficult. When we have rural communities and we're telling everyone, get a job in STEM, get a job in STEM, and then there are a few engineering jobs and they're told, you don't have enough experience. We're creating a catch-22 where we are telling our individuals to pursue these degrees and these opportunities, but then we don't have a pipeline for them. That's part of where we need to look across the board. And as someone who grew up in a rural community like that, where I would hear the expression, se fue el agua, the water is gone, and we would have to go pump it from the well. I have those personal experiences, and we need to understand how it's up to all of us. Again, it's cause and effect.
Sure. Thank you. And my last question from Jasmine, you talked about this issue of septic tanks and water contamination and all that. Do you think that different kind of water quality thresholds, besides the funding, is something that could be looked at and analyzed and revised in this situation?
I would say yes. We have over 21,800 septic systems in IEUA. We have a big project, Chino Basin project, where we're wanting to store water. And the biggest problem is going to be the water quality, I think. And just having this thought there that we will have more recycled water too, quality water that we're using 100% right now, and we're sending water down to Orange County. We can have that recycled water within our region to use it within the area. So it's going to take this collaborative effort. It's going to take the cities to work with the counties and work with us as board members. You know, we all have different priorities, but I think if we just come together and look at these low-hanging fruits, there are opportunities to make sure that the water quality is better for the future generation. I mean, that's the key: reliability, sustainability, having supply sources, and reducing the cost of imported water that we're taking in. So yes, there's many options that we can
Right.
look at and have be more effective.
Revised.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. I wanted to thank our esteemed members of this panel. And thank you for your time. And I'm thinking with all these efforts, we are going to take us to a new paradigm of how we see water, quality water, supply, connectivity, and a whole new way of looking at the water world today, which is changing and evolving. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your time.
We've got some really good wrap-up comments that are coming up, so I would encourage you all to stay. But right now, you know, we always talk about the importance of partnership, public-private partnership, and sometimes we don't always work with our private water agencies. And again, to the spirit of networking, we need to work with our private partners. And that's why we are so happy to have the private sector represented at today's summit. I know it's hard to because everyone's excited. So right now, I'd like to invite up to the stage Ed Jackson. He is the president of the California Water Association, which is the association of all private investor-owned utility water agency, and he's also with Liberty Utilities.
Thank you, June, for that warm welcome. My name is Ed Jackson. I'm the president of the California Water Association, representing regulated water utilities serving over 6 million customers in California. Regulated water utilities look to continue to partner, collaborate with stakeholders throughout the state of California to find innovative solutions to the infrastructure issues that we all face. So I get the pleasure of thanking some folks here for this incredible event. Thank you to this year's WINS host committee for leading the development and execution of the WINS Summit. Your leadership and guidance have been invaluable in bringing us together as a region and enriching our programming. Your collaboration provided resources and expertise for meaningful, forward-looking discussions. So our host committee consisted of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, So I'm going to read them all. There's quite a few, and then we can give them a round of applause. So again, LADWP, Orange County Water District, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Molten Miguel Water District, San Diego County Water Authority, Brownstein, Brownstein, thank you for that correction, Building Industry Association of Southern California, Coachella Valley Water District, Cordoba Corporation, Inland Empire Economic Partnership, Inland Empire Utilities Agency, and lastly, Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. So we also want to thank our partners and our sponsors. Through their combined support, we foster regional collaboration and innovative solutions. Together, we are addressing today's challenges and building resilient water infrastructure for tomorrow. So our partners include Black and Beach, Santa Margarita Water District, South Coast Water District, Tetra Tech, Western Municipal Water District, and Yorba Linda Water District. And lastly, our supporters include Arcadis, Carollo, California Water Association, Dudick, El Toro Water District, Fable Public Affairs, law firm Frost Brown Todd. Thank you. Fable Public Affairs. Fable. Thank you again, Public Affairs. Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, Mesa Water, the Municipal Water District of Orange County, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and lastly, the Southern California Water Coalition. And again, California Water Association greatly appreciates the opportunity to participate here in today's outstanding event. Thank you.
So next onto the stage is someone, you talk about it earlier with Senator Padilla breaking records, and we talk about this next generation of leaders in partnership. And I am so honored to introduce our next speaker, who's going to kind of share with us all the things that he heard throughout the day. So he took a lot of notes. And Mayor Pro Tem Alex Renagi of City of Laguna Beach was the youngest council member in the city's history. He got on the council at 22. Again, we're feeling like 24? 24, okay, that's still very young. I don't even know what I was doing at 24. And then now he's a mayor pro tem. So please welcome Mayor Pro Tem Alex Renagi.
Thank you so much, June. So my name is Alex Vernaghi, and as June said, I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Laguna Beach, but also the Vice President of the Laguna Beach County Water District. So in 2022, when I was running for office, I talked about a lot of different issues that are at the top of my constituents' minds: housing, fire prevention, traffic, pickleball, which we could have a whole panel discussion on if we wanted to. I didn't get a single question on water from one of my constituents when I was running, but what's interesting is that if we don't have water reliability in the future and there's an issue where people can't turn on the faucet and get water, we're going to have a lot bigger problems than if people can't play pickleball close to them because of the noise issues associated with that. And Laguna is unique in that we have our city council is also the board of directors for our Laguna Beach County Water District. So when I took office, I really felt like not understanding the complexities of water would is just something that you have to do when you're in this role, and given the stakes. So June asked me to summarize some of the key points, and I want to keep it very short. So I have really 3 key points that I think I've gotten from the other speakers. Number one, this is something that almost every speaker mentioned, is the need for more than ever, the need for water reliability and resiliency in the face of climate change. I think the last 100 years of water will be a lot different than the next 100 years of water. And as Supervisor Foley mentioned, in South Orange County, 90% of our water is imported, and that's not really a place that we want to be going forward. But what's really striking about water is it's not just about problems that could happen in the future with water, but the fact that 1 million Californians don't have access to safe drinking water is in many ways just unacceptable when we're the richest state in the nation. So I think there's so much work to be done. But what's exciting is my second point, which is that Southern California is really a hub of innovation. Kathy Green was up here and talking about the global leadership by the Orange County Water District with the groundwater replenishment project. I think it's exciting how our Congressman Lou Crea is in the gym and he's talking to people from other states about this exciting project that's happening right here in Orange County. Senator Padilla talked about Metropolitan's Pure Water Project, which is funded because we have an unprecedented amount of funding available right now that we have to take advantage of. Again, I'm talking about Senator Padilla. His quote was, "We should battle for ideas instead of the acre feet of water." And I really like that idea, I like that idea, but I like the fact that we have a lot of ideas right here in Southern California. The final point that I want to make is the need for leadership and collaboration at the regional level. Going back to the quote that several people have mentioned, but Congressman Correa said it first: "Whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting." I heard today that water rates have increased 3 times the rate of inflation. Our constituents are willing to bear more cost increases because that's what's going to be needed to make the proper investments. But what they don't have patience for is petty games and for fighting for the sake of fighting instead of fighting for a reliable water future where everyone's working together at the regional level. And I think what we heard today was that there is progress on that. LA County talked about how they created at the county level a water infrastructure plan that would prioritize projects to help meet the regional needs. Supervisor Foley talked about how Orange County's about to announce the first ever climate action plan. That's exciting. Vice President Estrada from Coachella Valley Water District talked about their efforts to create a human right to water policy, but not just creating the policy, but working to consolidate failing water systems. That kind of regional leadership is going to be the key to creating a better future for everyone. So again, going back to the other Alex who you heard from earlier today, his quote, "Unless solutions are win-win, we are all going to lose." I really do think that the next decade, both in Orange County and in Southern California, can be a decade defined by winning, which again goes to the name of the conference. So I look forward to being a part of that as an elected official and working with so many people in this room who have who've been involved in this for so long and who have, and I think that when everyone's working together, really the possibilities are exciting. So thank you.
Boy, if there was any doubt about what the future looked like and the leaders of our future, especially in water and our communities, that right there is a powerful reminder that we are in good hands. And it's really amazing to see the amount of attention and care. So thank you very much. You know, the Olympics is coming up, and if you watch track racing, it's a relay. You always save like that anchor, you know, one that's going to bring it home and just wow you. Well, that's what we did in spirit of the upcoming Olympics. We have no other than the chairman of the Metropolitan Water District himself to close us out and to leave us with our final thoughts. And I want to invite our chairman, Adan Ortega, or as I call him, just Adan.
Well, thank you, June. You put a heavy burden on me in that I have to not summarize the conference, but bring it home. And the new politics of water, that's the theme of this year's WINS conference. And what I like about WIN is that it's a forum to put out there some new concepts for us to ponder in the next year. And I hope that when we reconvene next year, we're going to reconvene and contemplate where these new politics of water have brought us. Just to, reiterate what the senator said, that the new politics of water involves interdependence. What does that interdependence mean? Well, for us, as the senator relayed, it meant that we had to swallow hard and have a united front on the Colorado River last year. Without the unity in California between the agricultural agencies and the San Diego County Water Authority and Metropolitan, we would have had our butts kicked. And we would not be here contemplating 2027 in the form that we are today. So collaboration also means swallowing your pride, accepting the interest of others, and knowing that when we go to Washington, they're going to be surprised by seeing us walk in the room together. Last year, we did that. We walked into offices. Many of my colleagues on the board were with us, but we were there with the County Water Authority and IID, sight unseen. They were very brief meetings because there was little conflict to explain, and we could bring it home when it came to what the other states were doing. Also, talking about the unusual suspects. I noticed that we didn't have any any people from the environmental community, at least that I was able to bump into today. But at Metropolitan, for the first time last year, for example, we had a meeting with the Colorado River Indian tribes over at our Jean Village camp facility. Why was that significant? It was significant because in the 100 years since Metropolitan surveyed the Colorado River Aqueduct, nobody had ever bothered to meet with them. And we've had about 3 meetings with them today because we have a mutual interest in how we can benefit each other through the water that they have available and some of the things that we might offer. And what's the magnitude of that? Well, we lost half of our Colorado River water in 2003 with the quantification settlement agreement, and we're running a full aqueduct. And you got to stop to wonder, how can we do that? And the reason we can do that is because of collaboration, the kind of collaboration that we're talking about today. And I also want to give credit here to my colleague Larry Dick, who observed to me about 6 months ago, if not a little longer, that we could carry this out when it comes to the Bay Delta with the agricultural community. And just 2 weeks ago, we signed an MOU with Westlands and Friant in order to start talking about similar collaborative programs with our agricultural partners in the Central Valley, where we might be able to help them with the Groundwater Sustainability Act and their burden to recover those groundwater basins, and we could find some areas of storage. The other thing that the new politics of water entails is leaving no one behind. And I think this is where the water industry is really struggling. Casulo Estrada and Jasmine Hall illustrated for us today areas of need where we have communities that are being left behind, where you have agencies that have had the courage to stand up and help them despite Prop 218 and other factors that could complicate their daily lives. It's far easier just to take care of your own without having to think of a further burden. And they believed in the state. And the state continues to be the state. Connecting the dots, I think, is something that we really have to do. When we go to Sacramento and we talk about political action, we have to tell them where they've left us. So, for example, in the case of Chromium 6, there's communities like the Coachella Valley Water District and the city of Coachella and others that have been helping the small systems. And as Mr. Estrada said, yeah, the state's asking us for money, for example, for Delta Conveyance. They're asking us to pay more for treatment, but these burdens have to be dealt with. You know, for Coachella Valley Water District, I hope you don't mind me saying, Casulo, it's a $500 million burden, a $500 million burden. And how you expect them to do that and do Delta Conveyance and help these small water systems is something that we need to reckon with as water officials and get behind each other in a one for all and all for one, so that the state understands the consequences and how these things add up. I think the other thing that we need to reckon with when it comes to the new politics of water, it's something that the senator didn't talk about, but I know it means a lot to him, and it's immigration. So when you look at the original system that was built in California to provide for the growth and prosperity that we enjoy today, who built it? Who built it? We talk about William Mulholland, who was an immigrant. When you look at who built the levees, it's Chinese laborers. And why did that happen? It happened because all of this was emerging during the time of development in California, where we needed, where there was great promise of quick riches. It was the gold rush era. It was the era when young people came to the West and made a fortune out of the fur trade or prospecting. So there weren't enough laborers to build the system that we depend on today. And I'll suggest to you that we're in another gold rush era right now. We talk about recruiting young people in the water sector. For those of you that work in this field, I know many of the agencies are out there trying to recruit operators. It's hard to get them. It's hard to interest young people in this field of work. Why? Because in the gold rush of today, the internet is going to make you quick riches, or you're going to have an online business that you're going to be able to leverage so that you don't have to have a regular job. And it is draining our labor pool and the talent pool that we need. I was talking back at CRUA last December to some of the leaders of the larger engineering firms. They're recruiting their talent abroad. And what little talent they're recruiting from California and the United States, they're building projects somewhere else because we're not doing it here. So I want to suggest that we need to get sharp and we need to get past this gold rush era and fill the talent pool that we need in order to move ahead. Right? There was another report about a year ago that if we were to build, for example, Delta Conveyance today, we wouldn't have enough engineers to compete with high-speed rail. So those are the challenges of the new politics that we have to grapple with. But I do want to leave you with a note of hope. When we talk about all these projects, the water recycling projects, leaving nobody behind when it comes to those that need assistance paying their water bills, or avoiding contamination by converting their septic systems to centralized plumbing. What we're really talking about is the foundation of this age's Hoover Dam. It's hard, I think one of the panels was talking about how hard it is to visualize for the public what we're doing in this age to deal with climate change. It's not easy for us in this age to go build another Hoover Dam. You probably couldn't do it, or another Colorado River aqueduct. But the foundations of pure water, what Orange County Water District has done, what the County Water Authority has done at great expense, what the City of Los Angeles is planning, what all of the regions in Southern California are doing, it's the foundation of what the future will be built upon. And so for me, in my imagination, it's an endless river. where we take up the challenge of the spring and the winter time. We take charge of our own future and we apply the best of our nature into building the infrastructure that's going to be required to adapt to climate change. So with that thought, I leave you. I look forward to seeing you next year. June Lopez and Molten Miguel Water District, you do the water industry a great service by giving us occasion to gather and visualize the future. So I look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.
You now see why he's the anchor. Well, we have come to that time, and you guys are the hardcore that lasted Friday afternoon, but there was so much that was shared here today. It brought us closer. There's a reception here that's going to start early because that's our Friday gift to you. But before we let you go, when we recognize elected officials, there's always, it's not an event if you forget at least one. And it was one of our late additions. She was very, very understanding because she was a late addition. However, this is recorded, so we wanted to make sure we recognize her. It's from our friends, City of Carlsbad, Councilwoman Teresa Acosta. Yes. And she was extremely gracious. And also earlier, I misspoke because I was talking about the host committee representation about the 5 out of the 6 counties, but we have Callegas in the house from Ventura, and I just want to thank the board member for being there, yes? And I just wanted to say thank you to all the hotel staff. And I know Chairman Ortega was very kind to mention Molten Miguel, but really our staff did a really great job putting up with me. And none of this would be possible without the leadership of our agency, our board of directors who allow us to do this. And when you come to Orange County, it's a place of belonging and we continue to grow. This is our only 2nd year. And I can only imagine what we can do next year with all of your help and new friends that we bring into the fold. And I thank you so much for being here, sharing your time, your ideas. And I hope you all stay for the reception because it's awesome. It's going to go from 4 to 6. And after that, you can have your life back. But there's some really great people. So I encourage you to join us. Thank you so much.